What's up, Menace soldiers? I'm the Alliance and welcome back to another video. So today is going to be a fun one. Recently I was sent by a buddy of mine, StarKiller5555. He sent me this link to apparently the worst Star Wars ranking list that has ever been composed. Now, I guess we'll wait and see how bad this actually is, but I've been sent this link a couple times from previous subscribers. I never actually checked it out, so today I'm going to check it out. Now, before we actually jump into this, definitely check out StarKiller's channel. He's an up-and-coming YouTuber. He's really been pushing out a bunch of fun content. He actually did an interview with me, so if you guys want to check that out, I'll leave a link to that specific video down in the description below. Now, that said, guys, I have been known to have some pretty controversial opinions when it comes to Star Wars films. I was actually one of the very first Star Wars YouTubers, at least that I know of, to put a prequel film above the original trilogy films. And not just that, but to put it at #1. If you guys want to check out that ranking, I'll leave a link to my own ranking in the description below. A little history lesson. So back in 2015, I made my very first Star Wars movie ranking. And I put Revenge of the Sith at #1 and Empire at #2. This was a pretty big moment for a lot of people because at the time, you would never ever find another Star Wars ranking that had Episode 3 above any of the other original trilogy films. Maybe in front of Return of the Jedi, you might find that, but you would not find it anywhere else, mostly because people were afraid to get destroyed online. But me, I didn't care. So I gave my true opinion, and while people did hate me at first for doing that, as time went on, Revenge of the Sith stayed at my #1, Empire stayed at my #2, and here we are today, and just in those previous 5 years, I've seen a massive change in the Star Wars fandom, going from being absolutely hating the idea that a prequel could actually be considered a good film to actually kind of loving the prequels too. So it's interesting, and that might be for different reasons. It might be because Disney messed up the sequel trilogy in a lot of people's minds, and so they just kind of looked at the prequel trilogy as being better than that, or maybe people are finally realizing the prequels aren't as bad as they like to say, and they kind of gave into their own biases, or the biases of the content creators that came before me. Whatever the case, we live in a better spot if you're a prequel fan. So that's good. We're getting progress at least. So this video is specifically going to be going over Screen Rant's rankings of the films, and apparently it's the worst on the internet. I guess we'll wait and see. I feel like there are probably worse lists than this one, but we'll see. Let's check it out. So, beginning with our first film on the theatrical releases, we have Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Okay, so this is actually my least favorite as well, mostly because I wouldn't really consider it a Star Wars movie. It was theatrically released, so you have to consider it a Star Wars movie in a way, but it feels more like a couple episodes of a TV show put together to make a film, kinda. And that's what it was, so that's why it feels that way. So I'm with them. I'd put it the lowest because it is not actually a movie, it's just a bunch of different TV show episodes put together, which that's why it is the way it is. Moving on to the 11th one, we have, wow, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Screen Rant believes that Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is the worst out of the entire saga. I'm actually curious, they're going to put that at the very lowest. Where are they going to put Last Jedi? Because these two films were very different, but still very critically hated by a lot of people, but also beloved by a lot of people. I personally couldn't put Rise of Skywalker this low. I actually thought it was the best out of the sequel trilogy. I might actually put it maybe on par with The Force Awakens, mostly because what I think what the Rise of Skywalker had to do was it had to really fix a lot of issues, not just from Last Jedi, but also, reconnect stuff that happened with The Force Awakens. And I'm not going to talk much about the whole sequel trilogy issues. If you guys want to check that out, definitely check out my my links to my movie reviews. I reviewed every single one of these movies in full depth. Check them out in the description below, or check out my rank list. I talk about this stuff more. I'm not going to go into super details because if I did, this video would be a lot longer than I mean it to be. Now, with that said, I will say while the storyline is kind of bringing Palpatine back was kind of meh, in the end of the day, I think that this movie had a lot of responsibility on its hands, because not only was it the end of the entire saga, it had to fix a lot of issues from the previous films that were setting up to it. And it tried its best, but unfortunately, it was too busy trying to do that it couldn't make its own cohesive story more better. I couldn't put it at the worst though. Now, that's tough to be able to look at this and say this is the worst Star Wars movie. I can't personally believe that myself, but I guess I could see why some people would believe that, but for me, I just can't see that. So moving on to the next one, we have Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones. So I can understand this one. Once upon a time, Episode 2 was actually my least favorite. Some other ones have definitely came are worse than it now, in my opinion. I think a big deal, I say this like every time I talk about this movie, but a big deal with why people don't like this film is the way that Anakin is portrayed. He's a little jerk, he's a little whiny baby. But if you look at the extra context and you change your perspective on his character and looking at him as more as a not a baby, not a crybaby, but as a young, damaged young man. I talk about this in my movie review, so definitely check it out in the description below. I keep saying that, but check them out. It does change your perspective on the film. It actually makes the film better. So if you don't like this film, check out my review, then rewatch the movie, and it might change your perspective. It might not, but it might. I had a couple people in the past who have messaged me since watching my review and said that they actually liked the film more because my review gave them a different perspective on the film. So I'm not saying I'm a miracle worker. You know what I mean? Like, this film is still really rough, but there are things you can do personally to make it better in your mind if you just change your perspective on certain things. So, yeah. So moving on to our next one, we have Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace. So this is actually pretty interesting too about a lot of Star Wars ranked videos that I see. They always have the Phantom Menace and the Attack of the Clones like interchangeable. So usually they prefer one over the other, but in majority of lists that I've noticed is that if you have the Phantom Menace here, you have Attack of the Clones right next to it, you know? Or if you have Attack of the Clones there, you have Phantom Menace right under it, you know? So I've noticed that with a lot of different things, but usually the Phantom Menace does come off on top because of the final lightsaber duel is just so amazing. There's a lot of things about this film that are rough. Things that I would change, like I mentioned in my review. Keep mentioning it, but check it out. But there are still really cool Star Wars scenes in this, like the pod race and the end fight with Qui-Gon, Maul, and Obi-Wan. I would say overall it is probably my least favorite of the prequel. At one time this was my second favorite, but I'm going to put it behind Attack of the Clones now in my personal ranking, so that's how I feel anyways. So far, from this ranking, I can understand a lot of their reasonings for why they would put certain movies where they're at. The Rise of Skywalker, putting it at the very last, that might be a little bit too far back in my opinion, but that's how I feel. But I can understand the other rankings on the list so far. So let's keep seeing, because I haven't seen The Last Jedi yet. I'm gonna guess it's probably next, but we will see. Okay, moving on to number 8, we have Solo: A Star Wars Story. Okay, that's right. I actually forgot about Solo. You're looking at me, you're like, how can a Star Wars YouTuber forget about Solo? And I'm like, I forget about this movie. It's a forgettable film. I think it's a fun one time in the theater watch. So I've seen this film 3 times. One time in IMAX for my birthday, and then I watched it again in theaters with a couple buddies, and then I watched it again Disney Plus right before Episode 9 came out for my re-ranking of the movies. And it is a fun film, but it is forgettable. So I can understand why they'd put it this far back, but I couldn't imagine putting this in front of any of the episodic films, at least in my opinion. But that's how I go. Except for Last Jedi. You could probably put it in front of Last Jedi, but any other ones, I don't really know how you could do that. Like I said, it's a fun film, but it's forgettable. So, yeah. Okay, moving on to the number 7, they have, oh my gosh. I now realize why this is called the worst ranking of the Star Wars films on the internet. At number 7, they have Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith. Oh. Could you imagine putting Revenge of the Sith at number 7 on a Star Wars ranking list? Man, oh, that's rough. Here's the thing. I am 100% okay with other people's opinions. You can have any opinion in the world. You could have the worst opinion in the world. And I'm okay with the idea of you having that opinion because it's your opinion. It's not fact. But the idea of Screen Rants, one of the biggest entertainment type of websites who report on movies and stuff, putting Revenge of the Sith, one of the best Star Wars movies in my mind, at number 7 behind, oh my gosh, The Last Jedi still on this. Oh, Screen Rant, what are you doing? Okay, yeah, I understand why they call this the worst list on the internet. I thought my subs were joking when they joke about this one, but no, they're being honest. Yeah, this is. Ooh, no, sorry, Screen Rant. like here's the thing: opinions can't be wrong, unless your opinion is this. Then your opinion's wrong. Okay, I'm just gonna move on from this. I don't need to defend Revenge of the Sith and why it's so awesome. You guys want to check it out? I have links to that review down there. Let's just move on to the next one. Number 6, we have Star Wars The Force Awakens. So Episode 7. I couldn't imagine putting The Force Awakens behind The Last Jedi. Maybe when The Last Jedi first came out and I was still in that mode where I was like, you know what? It tried a lot of different things. It was interesting because it tried those things. But man, imagine putting The Force Awakens in front of Revenge of the Sith and behind The Last Jedi. Oh my gosh. Screen Rant, what are you guys doing? The next one has to be Last Jedi. Or Rogue One. It's probably going to be Rogue One. Let's see. Next one is going to be number 5. Star Wars Story Rogue One. Okay, so yes. Number 5 is Rogue One. That means the next one has to be Last Jedi. They might put Last Jedi in front of Return of the Jedi. No, they won't do that. So, Rogue One is a fun film. But it's rough. I think this film is a very good film that didn't need to be told. So because of its story not necessarily being needed, and its entire existence just kind of being around to serve as an explanation to one of the biggest plot holes in all of cinema, it's okay. I don't hate Rogue One, but I can't say it's great. The best scene is the Darth Vader scene. I have a lot of subs who really like this film. That's cool, but for me personally, I just don't find it that intriguing. So that's just how I feel. Okay, moving on to number 4, we have The Return of the Jedi. Oh my gosh. Watch them put The Last Jedi at number 1. Could you imagine doing that? Oh man. Okay, so The Return of the Jedi. Yeah, it was the best finale to the Star Wars franchise before the episode 7, 8, and 9 came out. Speaking of episode 7, I should probably say this. Episode 7 started off with a very safe beginning. It was a retread of episode 4, and it should have had more to it. Like I said, you want to see that, more explanation on that film and my thoughts on it, links below, guys, honestly. I guess this entire video is more like plugging my own videos, but definitely check them out. They're videos that you should definitely watch. Anyways, yeah, so Return of the Jedi, it was a good finale. Good original finale before the sequel trilogy came in. So I like it. And I'm just shocked. I don't know where The Last Jedi is going to be. I'm scared it's going to be number 1 on this list. Screen Rant's already made some pretty big mistakes, putting Revenge of the Sith at number 7. Okay, let's do this. At number 3, okay, The Last Jedi. Okay. All right, number 3 was The Last Jedi. I cannot believe they put it this high. I don't need to explain it. If you want to hear my full explanation, I keep saying this, links below, guys. Check out my full review on this movie. That was actually a really fun review to do. Here's the thing about this film. As a standalone Star Wars movie, if it was not Episode 8, if the characters were not the characters we fell in love with in the OT, this would be a really good film. If this was not characters that were already set up in specific storylines and didn't bring characters down, crashing and burning. If it was its own story with its own characters, The Last Jedi would probably be one of the best Star Wars movies. But it's Episode 8. And it had a responsibility. Rian Johnson didn't respect what he was supposed to be respecting, and it shows. So that is my thoughts on that. If you want more, links below, guys. Okay, moving on to our next one, we have Empire Strikes Back. Okay, so Empire Strikes Back is usually number 1. If not number 1, it's number 2. I don't really need to explain why. Yeah, I'm not going to go into full detail with that one because you guys already know Empire Strikes Back is pretty good. And last one, Star Wars, the first one, or A New Hope, at number 1. I'm okay with this. I do think that some films like Episode 3 and Episode 5 had surpassed Episode 4, but Episode 4 is still a really good film. It definitely is a slower pace compared to some of the other ones, but it's a really good starting off point, and it created this entire universe, so you have to respect it for that. So yeah, I respect that part of the list. The last two I respect on this list. The rest, though, ooh. So if you guys want me to review any of the other worst Star Wars movie lists or like Marvel movie lists, like the worst ones you've ever found, leave links to those websites and stuff or whatever in the comments below. Because if I do use your suggestion, I will give you a shout out in that specific video. So thank you guys for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.